Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first, we want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, We Coach and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports, two great organizations that you really need to be a part of. Now, let's have a quick word from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive for their support of the podcast. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and check out their indoor scoring tables and video boards. They not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. We've got a Sideline Interactive score table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. We use it for home games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Hometown has recently acquired Ticket Spigot, and together they're going to provide a stronger and more comprehensive digital ticketing and event management solution for your schools. But if you go to hometownticketing.com right now, they're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online, how to scan the attendees and collect your revenue. And every step of the way, you're going to have a dedicated client success manager providing hands-on support. At Hometown, they'll also show you how to set up and sell tickets for things like school dances, your school plays and concerts, even graduation. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to thank Huddle. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an AD, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just love the smart cameras, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but Huddle is going to show your school, your coaches, and your athletes how to improve using a professional grade solution. Go to huddle.com. We believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards for all your sports or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their touchscreen consoles. They're interactive, along with their templates that are going to help you display the athletic achievements of your student athletes, both past and present. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Remember, they're going to bring your school's legacy to life. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com or on Snap, that's onsnap.com, and check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. SnapRaise is their fundraising platform. We used it at our school, and schools across the country have raised over $700 million. That's $700 million. They also have an option where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. Does anybody have that? Go to snapraise.com and check out Snap Store, Snap Manage, Snap Connect. The entire suite is there for you. You can find it all at snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in forms and registration, but they are so much more than that. Go to finalforms.com/Jake and find out how they can help your coaches, your stakeholders, and you. As an athletic director, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. That's finalforms.com/Jake for more information. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Go to Gipper.com and use the podcast code ADPOD10, and you'll get 10% off. Start creating custom branded content for your school's social media channel. Go to Gipper.com to get started. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also connects you with 95% of the parents and the student athletes who really love your program. And the feedback you're going to get is very positive, and it helps you take the pulse of those people that are so important to your department. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We are truly talking with an old friend today, Todd Olson. If you don't recognize that name, you must be new to the profession. Todd is a certified master athletic administrator. He's the director of student activities for the Fargo Public School System in Fargo, North Dakota. He's also a past president of our national organization. And Todd and I met each other, we'll just say a couple of years ago, when we both came on the NIAAA certification committee at the national conference. It was the start of a friendship and a working relationship for a couple of summers at the NIAAA office in Indiana. And shame on me for waiting this long to get Todd on the podcast. But Todd Olson, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thanks, Jake. I was trying to figure out what year it was that we would have met.
Oh my goodness. It was a while back because I think it was both our first year on the committee. And that was a pretty stacked committee back then. Dr. Lisa Langston, Mark Edgman, I think might have came on that same year. Pete Shambo, I think that might have been Vicki Nelms' first year. So pretty impressive group, except for me. You guys were carrying me that whole time. Well, we already talked about it. You're incredibly busy. You're a working AD for a big district. Let's go and jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up to those college years, and then we'll take a break and talk about your early career. But what's the Todd Olson origin story?
I grew up in far northeastern North Dakota. I tell people I grew up 15 miles south of Canada and 15 miles west of Minnesota. My family was an education family. My dad was a teacher coach and then a principal and a superintendent of schools. My mom taught for 35 plus years. So the Olson family, everything revolved around school. So that's just kind of the environment I grew up in. And I loved school very much. I always tell people we loved it so much we chose to spend our lives there. And I'm one of those people. Sports were always important to me. We all played 3 sports, 4 if you count summer baseball. And I just really enjoyed high school, really enjoyed school, became good friends with most of my teachers and coaches over the years. And, I've always looked up to them. And then I went to college and decided I was going to play college basketball and did so for 5 years total and had an enjoyable career. Ended up graduating from Mayville State University, which I'm very proud of. Little NIAAA school halfway between Grand Forks and Fargo. And, had a wonderful career there. Met some, at that time in the primary mission of the university was to grow educators, and met some wonderful mentors there. And, now I'm on their foundation board and trying to give back a little bit to a university that gave me a lot.
Yeah. Let's go back to those high school years. I think there's a perception, North Dakota, it's, just 100% rural, and, you'll have some big schools there, but what was your high school like? You talked about playing multiple sports. Were you guys a big school, a small school? Tell a little bit about that.
We have 2 classifications in North Dakota, Class A and Class B. We were a big Class B school at that time. My graduating class had, I think, 48 in. Most of the classes were 60 some. So compared to the rest of the country, pretty darn small, but in North Dakota, that was probably a middle-sized school overall.
Mhm. And then collegiately, Mayville, you and I were both NIAAA athletes. Talk a little bit about that competitive experience. Probably had some interesting road trips back in the day.
Yeah, back then we had a very North Dakota centric conference. So, I usually knew 10 of the 12 guys on every roster from just being a North Dakotan. It's a pretty small state. I saw we just set an all-time population record. We're all the way up to 780,000. So it was just a fun experience. And we played in a league at that time that played on Monday nights and Thursday nights, which was to stay away from high school basketball. So we played in front of full gyms all around the state every night, and it was a great conference. And it's amazing how many teacher coaches now that are in our state were people that we competed against in college. So beyond that, we reached out and played some D2s, played some other NAIAs from out of state, but our conference was all North Dakota teams. So that was pretty unique for that time. That conference has since undergone many, many changes, and there's still a few members left, but some have gone to Division II, some have, dropped athletics for the most part. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, that's a whole different podcast, the changes in that small college landscape. We certainly saw that or see that in the Northwest where I grew up and started my career. For our listeners, our guest today is Todd Olson, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. He's the Director of Student Activities for the Fargo Public School System and a good friend. We're going to take our first break, but we'll be back with some more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive for their support of the podcast. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and check out their indoor scoring tables and video boards. They not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to sell your tickets online. They'll show you how to scan the attendees that come to your games and collect your revenue. And every step of the way, you'll have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. They'll also show you how to sell your tickets for things like school dances, your school plays and concerts, even graduation. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting today with Todd Olson, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. Todd, talk a little bit about that early career. Most of us follow that path of teaching and coaching, and then at some point we get bit by that AD bug, either intentionally or accidentally. What was your journey to becoming an athletic director?
I had always wanted to be a math teacher and a high school basketball coach, and that's the path that I chose in college. And I did that for 14 years. And during that time, I got my master's degree in ed leadership, thinking that I'll probably be a high school principal and maybe a superintendent someday. And one summer I had my team down here actually in Fargo at a team camp, and I get a phone call from our athletic director, who was about my age, Craig Perry. You probably know Craig. And he lets me know he took a job with the Minnesota State High School League. And to be honest with you, I had never even thought about being an athletic director. Since we were about the same age, I assumed we'd both progress through things and, eventually get to other spots. And, it just kind of hit me that, wow, I got a chance to become the athletic director in Grand Forks, and, ended up applying, and a month later, I'm it. So it was kind of a quick change of mindset for me, who thought I was probably going to be a high school principal and go that route. Now
go ahead.
I'm 18 years into being a district AD, so it's been a good ride.
Coming on board like that, kind of suddenly, what were some of the things that you felt pretty confident about, and what were maybe one or two things that were surprising about the job, or maybe caught you off guard those first year or two?
Well, I think anytime that you grow up in a school district and you inherit the coaching staff that you've known for, in my case, it was 14 years, there were some guys who had been coaches longer than I had been alive. So, navigating that initially was interesting. I had run some big events, some large amateur basketball tournaments and things. And in our larger communities in North Dakota, one of your big responsibilities as a district AD is to run state and region tournaments. And, that I was probably most confident in. How I was going to navigate some of the grizzly old veteran coaches, it was probably a little less so. And, coaching prepares you for a lot of things. The whole parent thing didn't concern me much. I had a lot of interactions with parents, and, not everybody's motivation is always the same when you're dealing with a coaching perspective, an administrator perspective, and a parent perspective. And I think as you understand that, it becomes an easier space to navigate.
Talking about some of those grizzly veteran coaches, I'm going to guess one or two were probably served as mentors for you. We always like to acknowledge the mentors because none of us get to where we're at on our own. So who are some of the mentors you had that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I always told people that every day after school, I got to spend time in a coaching office at Grand Forks Central with Mike Berg, Vince Ames, Dwayne Hennessy, Pat Sullivan. The least experience of those guys had 30 years in the profession as I was coming into it. So just the things you'd sit and hear or overhear, or, asking questions. How do you deal with this? How do you come up with a coaching philosophy? How do you, why do you do what you do? Was, just extremely beneficial to be able to drop into that environment as a 23-year-old kid. I learned a lot without having to make every mistake myself.
Yeah, that had to be like a master class before there ever was a thing called a master class. Can you think of an example of something you heard in one of those sessions that you ended up putting into practice down the road, that, you made that connection? Boy, I'm really glad I heard that, 8 years ago, 12 years ago. Anything stick out for you?
One of the real things that I built my early coaching philosophy on was, I called them the little disciplines. I mean, how do you look at practice? How do you approach things? Just, what color is outside on your practice jersey? How long are your socks? Just a lot of those little things that, I think add up to becoming the big things. How important it is to be prompt with practice, how important it is to have things scheduled out to the minute. And, I think we ran things very efficiently and, really emphasize the little things that build up to be the big things.
Yeah. Again, those are so cool. I'll see those now. I'll go to a basketball tournament or a track meet, and you can see the coaches that have that philosophy, and you can see the ones that might not. Maybe they haven't developed it yet. I think the successful programs have those types of things. Let's go and talk a little bit about your journey with your state association and with the NIAAA. We do get a lot of newer ADs or younger ADs that listen to the podcast, not bragging, it's just true. And I think it's important for them to hear about the journeys that, people like Todd Olson take. So how did you first get involved with your state association, and how did that lead to involvement with NIAAA?
Well, I think for me, it started out with our state coaches association. I was encouraged very early on to become active in that. I was actually the president of our state coaches association before I became an AD. And then, just kind of led into Craig Perry, my predecessor in Grand Forks, had been very involved in the NDIAAA. The day I got the job, Ed Lockwood called and said, all right, here's our state organization, get involved. And I did so and ended up serving on the board and serving as the president of that. And then eventually, I'll never forget it, one day in July of, I don't know, I was probably 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in there. the phone rings in my office in Grand Forks, and it's Ed Lockwood and Sherry Stice on the phone. And they asked, so how would you like to be on the certification committee? And that was really the start of my involvement with the NIAAA at a pretty high level for a number of years. So, you know, you get that start, you meet guys like Jake Bonchier, you just start, you know, your network grows immeasurably over time. And I think that's what I talk to young coaches about. Get involved with your coaches association. These are your friends. These are people that are going through the same things you are. And I think that just expanded into the athletic director world. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of people who've experienced a lot of things. And, you know, I got to say my involvement with the NIAAA over the years has been one of the most satisfying things in my career. The first day before the national conference, we always stuffed the packets. And I always think to myself, where else can you walk into a room with 200 people walking around tables, stuffing these packets, and 150 of them you know by their first name? I mean, it's just awesome. My wife loves it as much as I do because, you know, it's like old home week or a family reunion or something like that. We go back to that, and it's just wonderful to be around all those great people. So if you're a young AD out there, get involved. Start with your state and keep working, and you can meet a lot of wonderful people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, the professional aspect, the professional development is without peer, but those connections, the networking, networking from a personal level, just adding to your friend bank, just so very valuable. So I appreciate you saying that. For our listeners, our guest today is Todd Olson. He's a certified master athletic administrator, past president of the NIAAA, and he's the director of student activities for the Fargo Public Schools. We're going to take another break, but we'll be back with some more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Huddle for their support of the podcast. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports, and over 200,000 teams across the country use Huddle to help their athletes and their teams play better. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school, and Huddle has the tools to help your coaches, your teams, and your athletes improve. Go to huddle.com and you're going to find a complete solution for the challenges you and your coaches face. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their touchscreen consoles along with their library of templates to help you recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards for all your teams, for all the events, or to recognize your school's Hall of Fame, talk to the pros at vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back, everyone, to our visit with Todd Olson from Fargo Public Schools. Todd, one of the things we try to do at the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little. What are some things that you've done as a coach or you've seen in your career? Maybe these are initiatives that you started with Fargo that you would consider best practices. You got a few you can share?
Yeah, I'll highlight a few things. I think, first of all, I'm a district AD now. So a lot of our approach is about customer service. And I want people in my department that have a customer service attitude. What can we do to make this a better experience for our coaches, directors, advisors, and most importantly, our students? So we really spend a lot of time focusing on that and how we can best serve our people and make their lives easier. Another thing we've done that's been very powerful, every year I present to our school board what I call our student participant satisfaction survey. And we ask them a lot of questions about How was your experience? How did your director communicate with you? How did your coach communicate with you? Did you feel safe? Did you, feel like this is a worthwhile experience? Do you feel like we're putting the right people in front of you? And, we usually get into 90% agrees in the 10 areas that we survey and share that with our school board. I think that sends a powerful message to our community that there is truly value in our co-curricular activity program. Another thing I've done over the years, and I continue to do anytime I can get in front of people, is when I finish my presentation, I will ask them, consider all of your education, all of your learning as 100%. What percentage of that learning would you attribute to your participation in student activities? And I say, it can be drama, it can be music, it can be football, basketball, whatever you were in. My superintendent was a big speech and debate guy. So, and I asked him, out of that 100%, what percent of your learning came from your participation? Typically, amongst our community leaders, I'll get somewhere between 30 and 50% of their learning they attribute to lessons that they learn on the playing field, in the theater, whatever the case might be. And then I remind them that, you got 30% of your learning, and we spent 3% of your budget getting that. Tell me that there's a better value in education than what our co-curricular program offers to our kids. And I get some head shaking and head scratching as they're leaving, and that's usually what I close with, that, hey, this is the best thing we have going in education. So let's make sure we do it well.
Just so you know, in true athletic director fashion, I am stealing that and incorporating it into my parent presentations that I'll do for school districts. That is, I mean, it's true. It's 100% true. I was thinking to myself, well, what would mine be? I was going to say, was it 49 or was it 51%? It was certainly high. And I was in, sports and drama and all those things too. So
Sure.
what a great tool. I think people dance around that, but that's very much that it's a in your face, but not in your face way of making that point. So very cool. Wow. Thanks a lot. That's definitely going in the toolbox.
Great.
For our listeners, we're visiting today with Todd Olson. He's a certified master athletic administrator. He's a former or a past president of the NIAAA, our national organization, and he's the director of student activities for the Fargo Public School System. I'm going to go down memory lane here. Again, Todd and I, we met each other years ago when we both came on the certification committee. I don't think it was that first year. I think it was the second summer, or maybe it was the first, because we came on board for the national conference. That's the first time we met. Yep. And then I think that summer, you and I were invited to Indianapolis to a working weekend with certification. And you already mentioned Sherry Stice and Ed Lockwood. What are some of your memories about that work weekend that we can share with our listeners?
Well, one of the things I remember is the amount of time we spent on the CAA exam, analyzing each question and trying to figure out, is this a good question? Is this a bad question? Or are there keywords in this question that are misleading? But, I thought it was an interesting process for something that, we had both gone through at the time. But, I think we also, was it that year that we put together a study video type of thing? We worked on some questions for a practice test, or... Yeah, I also remember Champs, by the way, and some cold beverages, but Champs is no longer there.
Again, that it was fun. It was exhausting. There were, and you're right. I think the review PowerPoint was already there, but we tweaked a few of those questions. But just the exhaustive in every sense of that word, going through the exam and looking at how many people got this right, the percentage of questions, the percentage of how many times people chose a distractor. It was fun, but it was definitely an exhaustive process. And Champs, you're absolutely right. Champs was our light at the end of the tunnel. So we're going to take a break, but we're going to come back with some more. But before we do that, Todd, I almost forgot, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, or maybe find out more about how you do things in Fargo, that's one of the things we do here. How do our listeners get in touch with you?
They can email me or call me. Email is olsont1@fargo.k12.nd.us. Nice short email address. And my office number is 701-446-1071.
And Todd's
Be happy to
information.
talk to anybody.
And Todd's information is also on the NIAAA portal for you NIAAA members. So again, Todd Olson, Fargo Public Schools. We're going to take a quick break. I know that's a shock, but we'll be back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Snap Raise, part of the Snap Mobile Network. Go to snapraise.com, or you can go to onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com, and check out their entire platform of options for you as an athletic director to help you do your job better. Snap Raise is their fundraising platform. We've used it at our school with great success, and they've helped schools just like yours raise over $700 million. They also have an option where you can get your money before you actually start your fundraiser. Does any other platform offer that? Go to snapraise.com and check out Snap Store, Snap Manage, Snap Connect. Check out the entire suite. Again, that's snapraise.com or onsnap.com for more information. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration forms, but there's so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility. They've got reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can also help your coaches with things like attendance and communication. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come out of your office. It's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Todd, you and I were talking during the break, and you brought up a very important topic. Can you share that with our listeners?
Well, we were talking a little bit about what I see as the threats to education-based athletics. And, I think it's very important that all of us in this realm stay on message with emphasizing how our education-based sports are different than the other things that kids can participate in other areas. Because we're education-based, we spend a lot more time teaching what I'll call the life lessons of sport, rather than just the skills or how do you get recruited, or those things that I'm seeing more and more emphasis on. We were slow to the party in North Dakota in terms of being threatened, I feel like. And this past spring, we had travel baseball come in and really decimated our high school programs. And I don't know if we did a good enough job of describing to parents, this is what makes us different. This is what you'll get in that arena. This is what you'll get with us. And so I think that's a message that it's been timed out differently around the country, but I think it's something that's very important that we stay on message about, because here's what school sports will give you that other opportunities may not. And all of that's tied in with, what we can call the scholarship myth, or, everybody's out chasing this athletic scholarship, and participation is oftentimes viewed as an investment to get a return on in terms of a college scholarship, rather than the return that we all know our kids are getting, which is the life skills that'll make them successful, productive adults. So I think we just got to keep talking about that and keep, make sure our programs are pure in what they're doing, and then emphasize to people that here's why we're different, here's why we're better.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, I think we need to take the lead as athletic directors, as state associations, as NIAAA, in doing that and getting that message out. Because, I think so many parents, there are more parents now who did not participate in high school sports when they were in school than I think at any other time. And so they don't have that frame of reference that, you and I and our generation had, growing up. So absolutely, we have to do it. And I don't want to say it's not a right, wrong, good or bad, but as you said, it's different. It is different. We have different goals. We have different methodologies. Certainly there's common ground, but, educational based athletics is a different animal. Very, very cool stuff. Thanks so much for sharing that. Share a little bit, because I want to give this topic its due. I need to add it to our regular list of questions, but what are some things that you have done? Again, I'm putting you on the spot here. What are some things that you've done with Fargo programs to help get that message out? Anything jump out at you that, again, our listeners can take back to their districts, their states, and do?
I think just sharing, as I talked about our student satisfaction survey, I try very hard to stay away from wins, losses, and records at any time when I'm out in public, because I think that we have to measure ourselves by a little different standard at times. And I think whether we're teaching, the life lessons that are important, our kids are telling us that 90% believe that they're being taught these things. People ask me on occasion for real-time data. I say, well, your real-time data is the score that's in the paper or on television that night. That's real-time data. The impact of participation isn't real time. That's something you can periodically measure over great lengths of time. Because if we're developing students that can work positively with others, that's a life skill that's going to impact them for the next 50 years, not what was the score last night.
No, and again, you and I have seen it over the years, over our career. Those life lessons, the hard work, dedication, commitment, sacrifice, teamwork. That's what employers are looking for, is somebody that has those qualities and can bring those qualities, to their business, to their organization. Wow, great lesson. Thanks for sharing that. Again, for our listeners, our guest today is Todd Olson. He's a certified master athletic administrator, past president of the NIAAA, and he's the director of student activities of the Fargo, North Dakota Public School System. We're going to take another break, but we'll be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channel. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com and tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Use our code ADPOD10 and get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Create custom branded content for your school's social media channel. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Todd, one of our newer questions we actually borrowed from Jen Brooks and her great monthly webinar. In your career as a coach, as an athletic director, what are some things, some lessons maybe that you've learned from the kids that you've coached or worked with, or maybe from the coaches? Anything stick out that you can share?
Well, I think from kids, you're constantly learning when you're an educator. I'm very impressed by our students now. I think kids are better and more socially aware than maybe they have ever been. I see some of the awesome things going on in our schools, and I just, their kindness and generosity just amazes me every year. So I think it's a good reminder for all of us that our kids are pretty darn awesome. I think the other thing that you continually learn from kids, and I grew up in a upper middle class community that had almost no minority representation in it. And I think just the varied cultures kids come from, the varied, you talked about parents not having experience in a lot of cases with high school sports. Well, that's the case in a good part of our community. Is we have a pretty strong population of fairly new Americans, maybe first or second generation, that you know they don't understand American high school sports like what we grew up in. And just being able to help educate them and provide those experiences, I think, is awesome. And then I think over the years, I've gained a greater understanding of the complexities of some kids' home life and how they're, some days you wonder why you're not getting their best at practice. And there's a lot going on at home that you may not be aware of. And just having that empathy to kind of walk a mile in their shoes a little bit and have some understanding towards that. Talk about things learned from coaches. I think the most significant thing I learned as a new athletic director was there are a lot of ways to coach kids. And, we all have our style, and there are people who are hugely successful all across the spectrum of coaching, attitudes, behaviors, things that I might see an excellent coach think nothing they do would work for me, but it sure works with those kids. And then you have some coaches who are mirror images of you or close. And everyone along that spectrum can be a great coach. So that's been my big takeaway from coaches, directors, and advisors over the years is, there's a lot of ways to do this well.
Yeah, again, you're so right. And, looking back, I don't know how you feel, but I just remember as that young coach, what did you do? You kind of coached the way that you were coached for a long time. And not that it was bad, but, finding your stride and finding those things that work, if there was a way to somehow, bottle that and package it and just give to coaches at the very beginning, obviously we do a much better job for our kids. And, the points that you brought up about, understanding, and I don't know if you ever know fully, but learning more about the kids and their home life and the challenges that they have. Again, as that young coach, it was, hey, we're here for practice, don't bother me with that other stuff. And, when you begin to build those relationships with the kids, you're so much more successful in all the ways that you want to define success. Forget about the wins and losses that you should be. So thanks so much for sharing that. Todd, this has been so cool spending some time with you. Again, we don't get to see each other that much other than, maybe a quick hi at the conference. So, brought back some great memories. And again, shame on me for waiting this long to have you on the show. But we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. We certainly established that you know your way around the world of athletics, but we're going to take another break. And we're going to hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor the Athletic Director Toolbox. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Todd Olson is going to put into his new Athletic Director Toolbox. So please stay with us. We want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve every aspect of your athletic department. At my schools, we use surveys for just about everything, for teachers, for coaches, for kids, and for parents. And the information that came back was almost always over the top positive, and it'll probably be the same for you. But surveys also allow that squeaky wheel parent to vent a little bit. And sometimes they'll share a small issue that you can address and keep it from turning into a big issue because you didn't know about it because you hadn't done a survey. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We have been visiting with Todd Olson, Certified Master Athletic Administrator and the Director of Student Activities for the Fargo Public School System. Todd, we've already established, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Todd Olson's new athletic director toolbox?
I think starting out, one of the biggest issues for a new AD is how are you going to stay organized on a day-to-day basis? So first thing I'd tell you is get a good scheduling software. We use our school today. It's been awesome. We use it for our transportation and our scheduling. Second thing I would tell a new AD is find something personally that keeps you organized. I have a spreadsheet that I use that has 4 columns on it. Every day before I go home, I update it for the next day. My headings are today, if time, future, and personal. I don't use yellow sticky notes. I don't use notepads. Everything that needs to happen is on this 4-column spreadsheet. Another thing I would suggest, get the book Inside Out Coaching. It'll change your framework for how you deal with education-based athletics in a lot of ways, I think. Philosophically, I saw in our district, it was a game changer. We use the 4 questions in interviews for coaching positions now, and it's been a great thing. I got to add a few more, Jake. Another thing for new ADs, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call people who may save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of trouble. All of us in this business are thieves of ideas. We're happy to share ideas. You just have to pick up the phone and ask. I see so many people, I used the quote before, reinventing the wheel, and it's just not necessary. And lastly, get involved in your professional organizations on the state and national level. It'll be one of the most satisfying experiences of your life.
No, again, you probably saw me scribbling those down to our list. Great advice for even a veteran AD. And I love the way that you separate those tasks on your spreadsheet, the Excel spreadsheet, as far as an organizational standpoint. Great stuff. Okay. Todd, once again, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
They can find my email on NIAAA.org, or they can call the office at 701-446-1071. Be happy to visit with anybody.
Todd Olson, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. All the best moving forward in 2023. And, since you're going to be coming down to Florida next year for the national conference, let's definitely set some time aside. Maybe get you and your wife up to my place. We'll take you out on the lake on the pontoon boat. That sounds awesome, Jake. Thanks for having me. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of each interview get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.